All right, everyone, welcome in to Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports. It's episode 13 here on Monday, January 24th, 2022. I'm Nicholas Hill, live here from Chattanooga, Tennessee, of the United States of America. And joining me from Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, is Gustavo Tomazeli. Gus, how are you doing?
Doing well, doing well. Finally, 2022 season has kicked out, has started officially in Brazil. So I'm excited to kind of talk action transfer market, but doing good, doing good. And what a weekend that was in football. And, it's just straight to like our topic, like how much sports have evolved throughout the time. Because this weekend, I think it felt like, let's say, football really bigger and different and evolved than compared to like 20 years ago or even 30 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, what we saw this weekend felt like the pinnacle of what football can be in terms of the just quality of play, the drama of play. But obviously, it hasn't always been like this. And I know for Brazil, the quality of soccer and how the Brazilian national football team has won multiple World Cups and has been the most successful team on the international stage. And it hasn't always been like that. And that's something that we haven't always had. So we thought today would be a good idea to kind of start off the show discussing how American and Brazilian sports, I guess, came to their current position. First of all, I'd like to shout out my friend at Tess, one of my good friends here from Tennessee. But kind of jumping right off into this, um, I guess we're going to start with NFL, right? And of course, we're going to break down all the games here in just a little bit. But just thinking about this particular topic, how did the NFL become the American sport? Because I think, for a long time, Major League Baseball was seen as the American pastime. But football clearly is that now. Like, the MLB does not have the ratings anymore that the NFL does. The NFL runs television. This is the reason why a lot of people even have cable anymore, Because if the NFL wasn't there, the cable industry would be dead. So, how did the NFL grow from this? Because you got to think about this. The NFL just turned 100 years old 2 years ago. When the NFL started, it was a series of small Midwestern teams across just across a small section of this country. And it took several decades for it to really grow. I mean, the Super Bowl was not a thing until the mid 60s. I think there were some pivotal events. I think one of the most pivotal games in all of NFL history is the 1957 NFL championship game between the then Baltimore Colts and the New York Giants. That was the first live broadcast of an NFL game. And of course, that went to overtime. It was Giant Unitas making some big plays, including a game winning touchdown. And that really, I think, set the NFL in motion. But in addition to just showing live broadcasts, obviously the innovations that come with that, one of the things I think that really helped the NFL grow was the implementation of NFL films. Like, we were able to look back at those games from the 60s, from the 70s. You can hear the autumn wind with the Raiders, or look at the Black Curtain and the Steelers. And just, it really made the NFL seem like the modern day equivalency of a Shakespearean drama. And that's, I think, what really helped the NFL propel itself to the top over decade after decade. And now America's greatest warriors, greatest superstars come from the NFL. I mean, the NBA hasn't had this type of popularity since Michael Jordan left. And Michael Jordan was their guy. NASCAR at one point was the second most popular sport in the country, but I think that died when Dale Earnhardt died. The NFL, though, has withstood the test of time. And it's just fascinating to think about how they've placed themselves in a position to where, I look at Twitter during the Bills Chiefs game yesterday, and everyone, all the sports analysts, of course, they're going to be talking about it, but all the political guys are talking about it. Like Philip DeFranco is talking about it. All these random YouTube people, all these people who never talk about football otherwise.
No,
They're talking about this game.
like here, it's incredible. Like, uh, I have like a guy who, a big friend of mine, Allison. He is from Americana. He never went to United States, never, hopefully he will go one day. But he was talking with me about Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Matthew Stafford, with the kind of close proximity of an NFL fan, because I feel like the difference between the NFL and NBA growth globally, I think the NFL is going slowly, is doing strategically one day at a time. I think the NBA put all the chips on international and kind of put on automatic in terms of domestic league. I think the NFL kind of was rivaling with the NBA in the 90s, early 2000s, but then NFL just pulled it off again because they understood that they have to prioritize domestic market, and if you increase the quality of the game, the international popularity will grow. I think with soccer in Brazil, unfortunately, is the opposite. I think Brazil does not take care of their domestic leagues, their domestic product, as they could have potentially achieved, especially with all the high talent Brazil had throughout the mid 20th century. And now, unfortunately, Brazil soccer is only seen maybe in the World Cup, but I'm really sad that Brazilian league and Brazilian soccer teams are not known internationally. Unfortunately, even when they play in the biggest stage, Libertadores or FIFA World Cup, it doesn't matter. Because they didn't know how to use the league type, and because not only the growth of the sport, the growth of the league, and because one thing is connected to the other, and the NFL is the king of that, and they're just harvesting the the way they produce their product and tweaking. It's like the biggest criticism of MLB is like what? Not tweaking rules or not tweaking things to make the game more appealing. Offense is what people want to watch in any sport. People want to watch home runs, baskets, 3-point shots, beautiful goals, and touchdowns. That's what people want to watch. Because sports, in the end of the day, is an entertainment product.
Yeah, I mean, that's ultimately what it all comes down to, is about the entertainment product. I think that's what's killing college football, frankly. If you look at the ratings over the past 10, 15 years, it's fallen off a cliff. I mean, Alabama, Georgia recently was the second lowest rated college football national championship in recent memory, and it's because people are tired of watching the same teams play for the title. The NFL, we got the Cincinnati Bengals, who hadn't won a playoff game since 1991, playing for a title. Potentially to go to the Super Bowl. I mean, that's just unbelievable. The 49ers, a lot of us didn't really give them a chance. I know we said on this show, that was the one game I didn't really question who was going to win. But the 49ers went up to Lambeau and won anyway. It's just, the NFL just has it right. Like, any team can win any given Sunday right now, and it's just glorious. In terms of its international presence, what the NBA and the MLB have is the fact that the baseball and basketball are easier games to kind of outsource. All you need for basketball is a ball and a court. So anyone anywhere can play basketball pretty easily. Soccer's the same way. All you need is a soccer ball and a goal. Baseball, there's some more equipment, but you don't need to be like physically imposing as much to play the game of baseball. Football is the most complicated sport because you technically just have a ball, but you got to have all the equipment to play it. You got to have.
And you need more people, because basketball and baseball, like what baseball it is, like you start playing catch, basketball is 101. Football, you really need a team setup, even in a simple backyard, fun kind of play.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a whole setup, and you got to think about. You can't see it becoming an international sport anytime soon because no other country has the developmental resources to compete with the U.S. I mean, even when the U.S. sends out a bunch of D3 teams to an international football competition, the U.S. kills them every single time just because other countries don't play American football like other countries play basketball or baseball. Like, the U.S. can actually be challenged at those sports because those other countries have been able to develop their own teams, develop their own culture to the game.
Yeah.
So I think the NFL definitely is all about getting people to want to watch the American game, but it's going to be really, really hard to try to move that into the next step. It's going to take decades to realistically grow the game in other countries to where people in those countries are going to want to play it. Because I remember seeing the story where a couple of coaches went down to Brazil a couple of years ago, and they were going to like teach them some advanced concepts and stuff. I think these were like middle and high schoolers they were teaching. But when they got there, they spent most of their time teaching the basics of football because no one knew how to play it or had had the equipment before. And, you know, how are you supposed to realistically see this one day being an Olympic sport if you're having to go to other countries and teach the most qualified athletes the basics?
And
Because you don't have to do that with basketball or baseball or, whatever other sport we want to talk about.
yeah, and because NFL, I think, is the most American sport in terms of connectivity, practice, the knowledge of the game. That's 100% American. I think
Right.
it's gonna take time for the other countries to embrace it, especially with But I think it's gonna develop because now NFL is really. I mean, in Brazil, a lot of people were talking about Bills Chiefs. A lot of people know the game, and even college football has an audience. My friend Bruno Slonik, who's commenting here, we're gonna go back to doing a radio show about American sports in Portuguese language, and there's a considerable audience. But I think in terms of playing the game, I think unfortunately, and even to get to Olympics is still far, a little bit further than it's gonna be because again, you have for the Olympics to for the I think sports to be on the Olympics, you have to have every country has to have a confederation. I think you have to have the knowledge, and I think but I don't think Americans would care about that. I think they even take pride of football being the American sport.
Yeah, and I think that's football is just such a part of the culture. Like baseball, basketball, yes, they have a place in American culture, but football is American culture. Football is the one sport where you block out entire Saturdays, entire Sundays to watch because, for one, it's just, the quantity's not there, right? In college, you only have 12 regular season games. In high school, you only have 10. NFL, we don't have 17 plus whatever playoffs you have. That's not that many games compared to 162 for baseball, 82 for basketball, 82 for hockey. Football, it just happens much less. And it has that specific season of fall into early winter where, this is the time of year where it is football. You can play basketball any time of the year. You can play baseball virtually any time of the year outside of winter. But it is our sport. And while, yes, I would love to see football grow in other places. Like, I remember I watched the Canadian Football League championship a couple of weeks ago. It was, I believe it was Winnipeg and Hamilton, two teams up there in Canada. And obviously, Canadian football has different rules for American football, and it's interesting to watch. But you could just tell the quality is nowhere close to the NFL. I mean, it's not even better than college football. So it's just it would take a long time. But the NFL, if they could continue to grow that audience, I really do think what you're going to see at some point is a team in a place like London. Maybe they try Paris. Maybe they try Mexico City. See, all right, can we put a team in England, in Mexico, in France, and can they thrive? And if they can thrive, then we'll have to see. But the problem?
And they have to develop their own leagues. I think that's for example, in Brazil, they've been, trying to develop a national league and even state leagues in terms of football. The growth have been kind of small, but at the same time, it's like, I feel like it's still gonna take a long way to catch because there's gonna be an interesting player or some sort of attraction within the sport, or like a rivalry.
Yeah. So think about this. So we have 32 NFL teams, 53 active players in every team. That's 1,696 players. Football players, are the vast minority of the American population. Like, we would have to export American players out to other countries. I mean, that's what happens. Like in the Chinese basketball league, the players that can't cut it in the NBA go and play over there. But because, You have 15 men rosters for 30 teams. That's 450 basketball players. There are so many basketball players who are really good who can't cut it in the NBA because you have to be extremely good at something to be in the NBA. So if you're not good enough for that, you can go to China, you can go to Turkey, you can go to Spain, wherever you need to go. But football, there's so many players that have to be in the NFL that I don't know if you would have enough left over to fill up an English league or a Spanish league or a German or a Brazilian or Chinese or wherever you'd be trying to go. And I do think perhaps with some of the international tensions that are ongoing with certain countries like China and Russia, I do think that's going to throw potentially a wrench into whatever expansionist plans the NFL has. But I think the NFL also has to consider, do you want to dilute your own product? Because the NBA doesn't have to worry about that because you only have 450 players to worry about. But when you have 1,600 players to worry about, then it becomes a lot more likely that you could dilute your own product.
And basketball, I think, is more marketable internationally because it's more, I feel like, a young people's game. I feel like, I don't know.
Well, there's a couple of factors when it comes to that. One, they don't wear helmets in basketball, so you always see the person's face. You always see what LeBron's thinking. You always see what Michael Jordan was thinking. You always can see what Damian Lillard is thinking and Giannis Antetokounmpo, what he's thinking. So, like, I think about Giannis hitting that game-winning dunk last year in Game 5 in Phoenix, and just him flexing on the whole crowd. I mean, that was just an epic moment. And you don't really get that as much in football because they're wearing helmets. You have to really look hard because we have, Tyreek Hill from the peace sign as he was running again for that touchdown yesterday with a minute left. But still, they have to do something really expressive in football because they're wearing a helmet. And two, like the sneakers, I think that's a huge trend. Think about the Air Jordans. The Air Jordans are one of the most iconic pieces of any fashion wear ever, and that's because of its association with Michael Jordan and basketball. People don't walk around wearing cleats like in football. Like Tom Brady can't go around selling Air Bradys. Patrick Mahomes can't sell Air Mahomes because they don't wear those. But you can walk around with Air Jordans. You can walk around with LeBrons. You can walk around with the KD shoes. So I think all of that stuff, and I really think what also helps too is just a basketball, even though I don't think it has as much association with the general American culture, it really has that strong connection to hip hop and the urban culture. And that just, as you said, it really connects more with the youth of the country and the youth of the entire world. Because when they connect with that culture in America, even from abroad, they inevitably end up connected with basketball because hockey definitely doesn't connect like that. Baseball doesn't connect like that. And football, even though there is sort of a connection, it does not have that same connection as basketball. So even though basketball doesn't get the same ratings that football does, it does hold a different type of place in the American consciousness. But ultimately it helps the individuals become more marketable because, as going back to what I said earlier, anyone in the world can pick up a basketball and start shooting at a hoop. Way easier than, because you can play with a basketball by yourself. You really can't play football by yourself.
And
but you can.
Yeah, that's true. Like football is such a collective sport, but it's such in like people's roots right now, especially with such many traditions, tailgating, and all the spectacles in the stadium, and now with the quality of the sport being increased, I think the NFL's pulling away really big, and that's why Super Bowl is even getting bigger. I think right now the game is getting bigger than the halftime show. I believe that. I think probably 15, 20 years ago, I think the game was as probably interesting or as more common as the halftime show. But I believe right now the Super Bowl game will get more attraction than the halftime show, no matter who sings, no matter who performs, because the sport.
It depends. Like, I mean, this year, Like obviously Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Kendrick Lamar, Eminem, Mary J. Blige are all very accomplished artists. But
No, I won't say it's not
yeah,
good. I think it's gonna be good. What I'm saying is that the sport has evolved so much that the game itself is going it's more is the big
right.
attraction. I think it wasn't as big attraction in the past.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people used to tune in just for the commercials, right? Just for the halftime show. Let's be honest here. The commercials have been trash for years. Like I can't really remember any funny commercials for 4 or 5 years now. I think there were some, but I can't think of them. Like it's not like the sexy and I know an M&M's commercial from like 2010 or that Betty White Ruster's Soul Snicker commercial from like 2007. I mean, there were some legendary commercials back in the 2000s. They're just not as funny anymore. Halftime shows, I mean, hit or miss. I loved last year just because I loved the weekend, but obviously, I think the GOATs probably like Prince, Michael Jackson. Those are some of the best ones ever, and those are always going to vary based off the artist. But you know, I think most people for these days are tuning in for football. I mean, even if you don't normally watch football year in and year out, or week in, week out, everyone is always going to be curious who's going to win the championship. And, there's just an association with the Super Bowl Sunday. Let's kick back, let's have some drinks, let's have some wings, some pizza. And this year with the fact it's the day right before Valentine's Day, I do think that's basically going to be a whole holiday weekend, basically. So it really makes it is its own day. But the NBA Finals, because and also here's another thing too, the Super Bowl is one game, compared to a 7-game NBA Finals, a 7-game World Series, a 7-game Stanley Cup Finals. That really sets it apart too, because it's
And
unique in terms of all the professional sporting leagues.
and even the NFL, this concept of the Super Bowl, the one game kind of final, has been exported. In Brazil, in South America, Libertadores was a home and home kind of. You play first game at one team's home, and the other team was playing in their home field. Now is a one game decision in one host city. So I think even the concept was being exported. Shout out to Ariel Ferreira, his friend. He's asking about comment on Copinha, and we'll talk about that on the Brazilian topics. But even Copinha, like it's a really fun tradition and helps develop the sport. They always the finals in the birthday of Sao Paulo, but unfortunately in Brazilian soccer, the game has been decreasing a lot throughout the years. Unfortunately, the talent has been replaced with physicality. That's the trend internationally. That's why we see players like Hendrick, and we hope he can keep playing like that because it's such unique and incredible talent. But sometimes the game pulls towards talent and the game pulls away talent. I think, for example, the MLB is coming back to talent. Before it wasn't. I think probably in the last decade it was more analytics, but now I think with young talents like Shohei Ohtani or even other young talents coming back.
Yeah, with the MLB itself, one of the main mistakes they make is a lot of their talent they're just not marketing. I mean, I would bet that the amount of Americans who could tell you what Mike Trout looks like is under 10%. I don't even think I could know exactly what Mike Trout looks like. And I watch baseball semi regularly. Um, obviously Shohei Ohtani, I know what he looks like because he was all over ESPN last year and of course doing all of his amazing feats. But baseball really has a significant star power problem. Because like back in the day, think about this: Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds. They were all some of the most popular athletes in the entire country. Um, that's not the case anymore because they don't market them.
Like if you think about it, let's say Mike Trout, you say is the best talent in MLB, right? Or he's so he has only is it only 1.5 1.9 million followers on Instagram. Hendrick, he is a 15-year-old soccer has half a million with 15-year-old because the marketing of the talent in MLB, unfortunately, is not good enough. I think, like, let's say, Patrick Mahomes probably is way more than
I mean, think about this: LeBron James Jr. Bronny has 6.1 million followers. That's 3 times the best player in MLB. A kid who hasn't even reached college yet. He's still in high school. He's a junior in high school. I don't even know. I don't even think he's a starter for his high school team. Has 6 million followers. I mean, that's the power of branding. Like, and obviously he has a big Twitch channel too. Like, if Mike Trout started a Twitch channel, he wouldn't even get close to that.
yeah. And the thing, just to finalize, because I really want to dive in to NFL weekend. It's just I really, feel that Brazil is not developing their own marketing their own talents well. Like, I think Brazil could do a better job, having, because Neymar even 11, 12 years ago could have been even marketed better. But Neymar was literally the successor of Pelé, wore the same number 10 jersey of the best soccer player in the world, and people internationally only discovered him when he went to play in Barcelona, because Brazil soccer can't find a way to market themselves or make people stop to watch, even though I still think Brazil has the better talent and one of the best soccers in the world. Unfortunately, I think the game has not been generous here as it is to, for example, the National Football League.
Yeah, I guess to start wrapping this up, what do you think can be done by the Brazilian Soccer Federation to update that? I mean, are they kind of just at the whims of the European soccer leagues? Because obviously they're going to always want to come in and take the top talent.
First of all, the teams have to take ownership, had really to take possession of their destiny. Which I mean by that is to create their own leagues, is to develop their own calendar, because some teams in Brazil play 75 to 80 soccer games a season. In Europe, it's like 60. So how can you train? How can you develop talent when you play a game every 3 days? And it's not like baseball. Probably you can play a game every day because it's more mechanics, it's more repetition. In soccer, it's like football. You need to practice tactics. You need to practice, like, it's like, imagine if you have to play football on Sunday and Wednesday too. I think the quality of the game would decrease because you would have time to practice, to develop schemes, to develop plays. Because in soccer, I feel like it comes close to football, because in hockey, basketball, and baseball, it's more about the individual. It's more individual play. Football and soccer is very close, especially the 21st century soccer is very collective, is very, a more team game. You have to have a good scheme. You have to have like, you prepare plays.
So, all right, here's a proposal. I'm curious to see what you think about this, because obviously this didn't work in Europe, and I feel like you know where I'm going with this. How about some type of South American Super League? Some of the top clubs in Brazil. Maybe you pair up with some of the top clubs in Argentina, like, and Chile, and some of the other top countries in South America, Uruguay. Do you think that could help? Because obviously, obviously I know with the state tournaments and stuff, I feel like that would ruffle a lot of feathers, just from my outside perspective.
I
But
think
that might be in the best interest of those Brazilian soccer teams who want to compete with the European counterparts.
I think the idea would be awesome, but it would definitely have a lot of roadblocks. First of all, Brazilian soccer is a lot of political connections. So you would have to first take ownership within the country. If Brazil is able to make their own league, maybe they can then partner and create a league connected with Argentina and other countries. Because even the South America Confederation, CONMEBOL, does not don't do a good job promoting the Libertadores, which is the biggest tournament. Because it's so funny, Brazilian teams live for Libertadores. It's their biggest obsession. But the Confederation treat them very badly. A lot of refs decisions that is very controversial. Even like I say, favoring towards the other South American teams compared to Brazil, especially Argentina. Always in the behind the scenes, Brazil seems to get always not favorable in the decisions. So I feel like the Brazil have to solve a lot of issues off the field to improve the game on the field.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's what happened to the European Super League. But I mean, obviously, in that case, I don't think it would have really helped. I think it would have hurt Europe soccer just because the individual soccer leagues over there are so strong. But I could see like that potentially working. Of course, I mean, the MLS is both US and Canada, so that it wouldn't be unprecedented for a soccer league to go across international boundaries. So I'll be curious to see how Brazilian soccer progresses, of course, with the new generation of talent coming in like Endrick. I know I'm going to be excited to see him progress forward. But let's move on to some NFL playoff talk because this was unbelievable. Just every single game came down to the final play. I am pretty sure that's the first time that's ever happened in NFL playoff history. I don't know if we're ever going to see that again. It reminds me of the quote. I forget. I don't know who was the commentator for Manchester City and QPR in 2012 when Sergio Aguero won, and he's just like, "I swear you're never going to see anything like this ever again. So watch it, drink it in." That's what this weekend felt like as a football fan because. Because last week, the wild card weekend, there was like 1.5 good games. It was not the best weekend of football ever. But this weekend was. And even though things did not personally go very well for me as a Titans fan, because obviously the Titans lost one of those games on the last second field goal to Evan McPherson and the Cincinnati Bengals. And I'm trying to think how I want to place this nicely because I really like Ryan Tannehill. When he came and took over for Marcus Mariota, he elevated the play of the Tennessee Titans. He did. He's been a fantastic regular season quarterback. He's played off of Derrick Henry very well. He's established a really good connection with A.J. Brown. But he threw 3 interceptions in this game. 2 of them, I would say, his fault. One of them, just a really great play by the Bengals defender. But you can't throw it late to Julio Jones on the first play of the game. That got picked. And then you can't throw it into triple coverage to Nick Westbrook or Keenum. You just can't do those things. And that's where that was 6 points that went the other way. And that's what got you beat. To be fair, Derrick Henry did not play that well. You could tell he was not 100%. They should have ran more of Deontay Foreman. And going back to that last play of Westbrook or Keenum, why was Julio Jones not on the field? What is Todd Downing doing? Yeah, I've had questions about him all year. Some of the decision making hasn't been great, but it just was terrible at spots in this game. A game that the Titans really should have won, especially when you sack Joe Burrow 9 times. You hold Jamar Chase to 3 catches. Like that to me was my biggest concern. I thought, okay, if we finally want to slow down Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, we're going to win easily. But not the case because Ryan Tannehill threw 3 interceptions. And unfortunately, he's just not a good playoff quarterback. Like we've seen this before at Kansas City 2 years ago when Derrick Henry got slowed down, couldn't win the game. Last year against the Ravens, Henry gets held to 40 yards. Tannehill couldn't win the game. This year, Henry ran for 62. And guess what happened? Tannehill could not win the game. In fact, really lost the game for the Tennessee Titans. And a lot of Titans fans are ready to move on. And just my question is, is there anyone we can move on to? Part of me is thinking Ryan Tannehill may be the best option we're stuck with. Of course, I know there's guys like Russell Wilson who might be on the transfer market. Maybe Aaron Rodgers is on the transfer market. Do you try to make a play for them? What would we have to give up for them? Is there someone you can draft? I don't think this quarterback draft class is that good. I think the Titans are kind of stuck here because Tannehill's really good in the regular season, but is at this point, for most of the fans, AFC South isn't going to cut it anymore. We want to see an AFC championship. We want to see a Super Bowl. When you have guys like Derrick Henry, when you have A.J. Brown, when you have Jeffrey Simmons, Kevin Byard, like this is as talented as a team as you can get in the NFL. And to see them choke away a chance like this, a golden opportunity with the 1 seed it's just disheartening.
And also, if you think about it, when you had the interception on 1 minute remaining on the third quarter by by Hooker, and then on the next play Tennessee scored a touchdown, it felt like the momentum of the game went the other way because because at that was a 10-point deficit, and then the Titans score a few goals and got an interception and then a touchdown. It seems the momentum was all for the Titans, and then Ryan Tannehill blew it on a really sloppy throw, and then McPherson did a phenomenal. But I'll just prove how Joe Burrow is a phenomenal player. I think he's a generational talent.
I think he is too.
I mean, he was sacked 9 times. He was intercepted, a couple of times, and he will still be able to win a road game versus the number 1 seed in the AFC.
I really think doctors need to check and see if Joe Burrow has a pulse. I don't think he has a pulse. I mean, this guy since LSU has been one of the calmest, most collected quarterbacks I've ever seen. This dude lets nothing rattle him. Like, I don't think I've ever seen this dude be rattled once. Because I remember, at LSU, I think I might have brought up this last week about how, he was asked after the game, how worried were you about this game? When did you know you were going to beat Clemson? And he was just like, oh, I got fitted for the championship ring before the game. That's just the confidence that Joe Burrow has. I mean, I can't hate Joe Burrow. I know he just knocked out my team. I can't hate him. I'm going to be rooting for him this week because, I mean, he's just a cool cat. And Jamar Chase, that dude is going to be special. I mean, he is already special. He's going to be one of the best receivers for the next 5 to 10 years. I think he's basically Tyreek Hill. But it has that same skill set, could be a little bit better, and already has a magical connection with his quarterback. Like, Burrow Chase could be as good as Mahomes to Hill. Could be, I think, as good as a connection like Montana to Rice eventually. And that's an insane claim to make after 1 year, but I think that connection could be that special. And of course, I have to give big credit to the Bengals defense. I mean, they played their tails off, especially, God, I forget what his name is. It wasn't DJ Flowers for, hold on, I gotta look this up real quick, but it was the Bengals. It was number 98 for the Bengals. Their DT, let's see. DJ Reader. DJ Reader. That's who it was. He was disrupting the running game the entire game. He was getting to Tannehill. That dude was the MVP outside of Evan McPherson for the Cincinnati Bengals. It was a gutsy performance when really their offensive line got just demolished.
Yeah,
the entire game.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like the Kansas City Chiefs is heavily favored because of the. I think I don't know if.
I'll say this though: the Chiefs' defense is nowhere near as good as the Titans' defense. But the Titans' defense was by far the best defense in the AFC. Them and the Patriots, but the Titans were the best ones left. So I think the Bengals will actually do a lot better this week on the offensive side of the ball. The only problem is for the Bengals is the Chiefs are way better on offense than the Titans. And if we want to, let's just segue into the other AFC game, and we'll talk about the NFC because the Chiefs-Bills blew my mind. I mean, it was like it was just like going on Nirvana. Like, just it was the most just mind-blowing football game I've ever watched. Like, you sit back, I was sitting back during that game, and I was thinking, I can't believe the sport of football is being played at this level.
It's one of those games that you love as a fan. You love as a fan of the league, but you hate as a fan of the team because it's like, it's the kind of game that if you're a fan of it's like a couple of years ago, 10 years ago, like Flamengo and Santos play. I know it wasn't for a playoff game, but Ronaldinho, Neymar, it's like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Like, top quality soccer, and the game was beautiful. But for the fans, were excruciating because back and forth. Was so when it's the kind of thing that you probably enjoy more as a fan of football than the Bills or the Chiefs fan enjoy because they were like on hard, like they were in such emotion, a roller coaster.
Yeah, one of my friends, Connor, who I do the Instant Review podcast with, and we're going to do it tomorrow at the same
I
time,
can't wait
8
to watch.
p.m. Yeah, I can't wait to talk to him because we're going to have some moping that we collectively have to do. I'm calling the episode the epitome of brutality. I'm stealing that from John Rothstein, a college basketball writer, just because I love that saying, and that really kind of talks about, because as bad as the Titans loss was, the Bills was way worse. Just in terms of how brutal it was. They had won the game and then lost it. Although I will say this, the Bills are going to have many opportunities to win a Super Bowl. And Mahomes Allen is, I think, the next Brady Manning. I'm calling it now. We're going to see this matchup multiple times over the next decade for championships in the playoffs. I mean, it's just these two dudes are too special. I mean, Josh Allen, just some of the throws he was making. Gabriel Davis had 4 touchdowns in this game. And it just, the connection was absolutely magical. But on the other side, Patrick Mahomes is showing why he has the chance to become the GOAT. Like, Mahomes has a chance to become the GOAT. I mean, just special. I mean, finding the one play that he made to Travis Kelce, just threw it right over the middle, only to where he can get it. Tyreek Hill, just getting into spots where only he can get it and make big time plays. Yeah, it's just you run out of words because I mean it's just these two quarterbacks doing everything they possibly can
So,
to
question:
win.
You talk about Gabriel Davis. Does Reinaldo from São Paulo looks like Gabriel Davis?
Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah, a lot of people in Brazil were joking, like São Paulo is in the off season, so they're like, "What is Reinaldo doing playing the NFL so great?" That's the
Yeah.
comparison. Like that's why we're talking about Gabriel Davis. It really like they and it's so it's just Myers there, but they really look like.
Yeah, and that's pretty funny too, because you mentioned how much popular the NFL is becoming in Brazil, and the fact that they have their own memes that you're having to explain to me, an American, about is it's awesome to see, and that's when you know it's really making it when the people are making memes about the sports.
Yeah, I know, but Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, the NFL, it's even lucky that they can create those kind of rivalries because that's what feeds into a sport's popularity. It's rivalry between two players with great teams. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, they're gonna rematch it again, and it's gonna be as big because people are gonna remember that game, the yesterday game for the ages. And definitely the Bills won a revenge. They finally, because I think they're 0-2 right now with the Chiefs,
Yeah,
right?
right. I mean, think about this. I mean, Josh Allen essentially is where Peyton Manning was, right? Peyton Manning could not beat the Patriots for the life of him multiple times, but finally got over them in 2006. To me, that's what Josh Allen is going to be. When is he going to be able to get past Patrick Mahomes? And then, too, not to mention, we got Joe Burrow in the mix. He's going to try to make some noise. Justin Herbert's going to be in the mix, trying to make some noise. You still got Lamar Jackson.
The, the Patriots are gonna come back. I mean, don't count them out yet.
Yeah, I think Mac Jones. I mean, he's pretty good. I don't think he's going to be Josh Allen good, but he was a lot. I'll say this: Mac Jones was a lot better as a rookie this year than Josh Allen was as a rookie. Of course, Patrick Mahomes didn't really play his rookie year, so I think he has a great chance of elevating himself. And I think he's going to be a very good quarterback. And the AFC East is going to be phenomenal for years to come between those two teams. I still think Miami has a lot of good talent, but I think they've really messed up with Brian Flores. And, of course, the poor Jets, I don't know how in the world they're going to be competitive over the next decade. And, of course, over in the AFC West, Mahomes, Herbert, Derek Carr, and I think the Broncos have a shot to get a pretty decent quarterback, whether that's Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe they try for Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. We'll have to see, but they have a lot of talent themselves. So the AFC is going to be a lot of fun. And I guess let's talk about the AFC title. We'll just break this up by AFC, NFC, The Bengals and the Chiefs, you mentioned it, the Chiefs are massive favorites. I think most people are going to pick the Chiefs because the Bengals have such a weak O-line. But I will say this, the Bengals did beat the Chiefs at home on January 2nd, 34-31. Burrow and Chase were just magical that game. I think Chase had like 3 touchdowns and like 250 yards in that game. I think this is going to be a really close game. I think the Bengals are going to give the Chiefs everything they've got. But at the end of the day, Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs is just special. I mean, I think I saw at halftime yesterday in non-Super Bowl games. Up to that point, he had like 21 touchdowns and an interception. And I guess now he would have like 24 touchdowns and an interception in the non-Super Bowl playoffs. I mean, this guy is probably the best playoff quarterback we've ever seen. He's even better than Brady in the playoffs. Because you think about it, I know he lost to Brady last year in the Super Bowl, but that really wasn't Patrick Mahomes' fault. I mean, he was having to run around for his life the entire game. He ran for like 600 yards.
He lost key players.
Yeah. I mean, Patrick Mahomes was not the reason why Kansas City lost. I mean, he was the reason why Kansas City had any chance in that game.
And
I mean, he is by far the best quarterback right now.
And if you think about it, Brady versus Mahomes, when they were toe-to-toe, when they have full rosters, they went to overtime and the Patriots won because they got the ball first, which is, I think, again, it comes back.
And really, they would have gotten the ball back if D Ford hadn't lined up off sides. Like, D Ford lost that game for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs.
Yeah. And but just, remind me of, again, a lot of people are like complaining, oh, the NFL overtime rule, but the rules are the rules. When
you can't let the other team drive down the field in 13 seconds. It's as much as I would love. Here's what I think they should do. I think each team should get 1 possession guaranteed, but both ends of the touchdown, then the next possession, sudden death. I think that's what they should do.
I agree. I think it kind of like it's kind of like silver goal in soccer. It's like if you score in overtime in soccer, but you tie still in the first half, you can still go to second half. But if you win the first half of the overtime, then it's over. I think because I think 1 possession is fair, but then it goes sudden death. I think because then it's a middle ground between the college football, kind of 7 overtime and like crazy. But then,
and I'll say this too. I think you can have different rules for regular season and postseason. I think regular season is fine because you have 17 games. You don't want the players to get more worn down than they already are getting. I think that's fine. But postseason, both teams should have that guaranteed possession because of the finality of the game.
No, I definitely agree. I feel like there should be rules changing playoff and regular season. I think it's because overtime in regular season it's not as decisive as overtime in postseason because it's all on the line. It's all on that play. But in the same Chiefs fans there are celebrating the overtime rules favoring them, or the same one that want to change 3 years ago. So I think
you'll celebrate a rule when it helps you.
Yeah, it's like when a soccer referee makes a mistake in Brazil, and the team like, oh, it's a conspiracy theory against it. No, it's not. It's just referees in Brazil is not as good. One day it makes a mistake on you. The other game it do a favorable decision for you that it should have been. It's just life, and overtime rules sometimes favors you, sometimes it goes against you.
Yeah, it's really, I think, no foolproof way to do overtime. It's one of those things where like you always want the game to end at 60 minutes because you have to kind of do something arbitrary to end the game. I mean, I think the easiest sport that does it probably NBA and basketball in general, because 5 minutes, it's 5 minutes. It's just, all right, here's 5 more minutes, fight it out. Baseball, you get an extra inning. Those are the most fair ones. Of course, in NHL, they just keep on playing until someone scores, and that's fine. But the NFL is by far the hardest one to do, but I think the 1 possession each would be fine. But even in that case, I still think the Chiefs probably end up winning because of the coin toss. I mean, it's the way it's going to be. in a game like that. But not every overtime game is going to be like that. I mean, I remember, was it Ravens Broncos 2012? That thing went into the middle of double overtime because both defenses were playing really well, but then eventually the Ravens won it in OT on a field goal. So, it's not always going to be the first team who gets it's going to run down the field and score. So it just that's how this one happened to be. But anyway, just what are your quick thoughts on the Bengals Chiefs?
I think the Bengals have nothing to lose. That's the good thing about this game for Cincinnati. They have nothing to lose. Their fans are already overjoyed of their season. They won the division and they made it to the AFC Championship. If you would have told the Bengals fans that would have happened, if you would have come back in time and told the Bengals fans September 2021 that the Bengals would be playing January football and going to the AFC Championship and winning the division, they would have been like, "That's crazy. That's insane. Like, are you drunk or are you mentally crazy?" But now they enjoy. They won a playoff game at home, something that haven't happened in 31 years. They went to the AFC Championship, so now they're playing like nothing to lose. That's the only good thing I think the Bengals having going for them. They have nothing to lose. All the pressure is on the Chiefs. All the pressure is on Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Joe Burrow is sitting there and is just going to enjoy and play the championship game, because even if he lose, I don't think the Cincinnati sports media or the Bengals fans are going to be harsh on him.
It's like where the Titans were 2 years ago, because remember in that game, the Chiefs had all the pressure on them because they had come up so short against the Patriots the year before. And the Titans were just in there like, man, we were 2-4 and now we're in the AFC title game. Oh my gosh. We're playing with house money. Cincinnati's in the same place too, but I don't know. I'm feeling the Chiefs are going to win this one by around, I think, 10 to 14 points. I think it'll be a good game. It's just Patrick Mahomes is going to be too much. He's just he's on a different level.
But I think that the Bengals are going to score first. I think they're going to build a lead, and then I think Patrick Mahomes is going to, again, pull up Patrick Mahomes and, win the game and overcome any deficit that they might individually, face it.
Yeah, the Chiefs always start off slow in the playoffs. It's really weird. Like, if you think about their past couple of runs, they always start off slow. So, if you're a betting man, you might want to bet the Bengals to score first or bet them to win the first quarter. I definitely would not be surprised with that at all. That's not official gambling advice. It's just my personal 2 cents on the matter. But I'm thinking the Chiefs here by 10 to 14.
I'll say the Chiefs by 10 points.
Yeah. All right. So we're both locking in the Kansas City Chiefs. Sure, their third straight Super Bowl, which I don't know when the last time that happened. Hold on. I got to look this up. In terms of the history of the Super Bowl, I think the Patriots did it back in the 2000s, if I'm correct. Between 2001 and 2000. Well, it might have been 3 out of 4. Just off.
I think it was 3 out of 4 because in 2002 was Tampa Bay and Oakland.
Right. Let's see here.
But they were 2001, 2003, and 2004. But back to back, I don't.
Let's see here. Patriots. Okay, so the Patriots made it from 2017 for 2019. Because they lost to they came back against the Falcons in 2016. They lost to the Eagles in 17, then beat the Rams in 18.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's really crazy because I don't remember them as them going to the playoffs the Super Bowl 3 straight years in a row, but they did. So anyway, let's move on to the NFC because this side just went bonkers. We'll start off with the 49ers and Packers. I said, excuse me, I said last week that the Packers were going to run away from this game. I thought the 49ers weren't going to do anything on offense and that the Packers would win this game relatively easily. I was right in the fact that the 49ers offense did nothing in this game. They only had 3 offensive points. They were held scoreless at halftime. Jimmy Garoppolo only threw for 131 yards and an interception. Deebo Samuel only had 83 total yards. But 2 things brought down the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay Packers had the opening touchdown drive. It was a beautiful drive, and I was thinking, oh boy, here we go. The beatdown is here. But the Packers offense went silent. They didn't do anything. Aaron Rodgers did not throw a single touchdown pass here in this entire game. The 49ers defensive line took over. They really prevented the Packers from being able to run the ball. They prevented them from being able to effectively throw it, kept themselves in the game. And then a blocked punt, a blocked field goal in the second half. And then eventually the 49ers win it on a Robbie Gould field goal in the snow, 13-10, as the Packers suffered an inexplicable meltdown. I mean, that's all you can say it as.
You gotta say though, what a gutsy postseason by the 49ers. They went to Dallas and Green Bay, defeated both, and now they're going to the NFC Championship, and they're going to play another road game. But I think, they have more chance because they're going to play a similar weather where they used to. If they can win on snow,
they'll be in a dome. So yeah,
in a dome, and with the crowd is going to be, probably more favorable than ever because the Rams, fan base not as strong as Dallas or Green Bay, and a lot of 49ers fans after watching this playoff, performance, they're going to make the travel to LA.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the worst quarterback playoff performance in a win. I mean, let's just say it that much. Jimmy Garoppolo did nothing to help the 49ers win this game. But Aaron Rodgers didn't do enough to win the game either. And this is just as bad as the Titans loss was, as bad as the Bills blowing that game was, this was the worst loss of the weekend for any team because the Packers had so much riding on this season. They're $45 million over the cap, which means even if they don't sign anyone, they really can't do anything. They needed to win this year, and they couldn't do it. And now they're going to see a lot of their star talent leave because of it, including Aaron Rodgers. And really, this game was the story of Aaron Rodgers' time in Green Bay. After winning in 2010, they just couldn't do it in the playoffs. Think about it, they hadn't even made the Super Bowl again. It was always something stupid, mostly the defense being terrible year after year after year. Although this time it wasn't the defense. I mean, the defense did not lose this game for the Packers. The offense and special teams did. And I think this game firmly takes Aaron Rodgers out of any GOAT discussions. I think he needed to win a second ring. Obviously a lot of people were not going to give him that over Brady because of only having potentially 2 rings. But he just wasn't able for many reasons to get it done. And I think for Green Bay, it's going to be a dark couple of years as they try to rebuild.
I think, that was the last chance. That was the last opportunity for Aaron Rodgers to win a title in Green Bay. But again, it all come back to Aaron Rodgers, inability to create a overall good roster and to create a mentality of, collectively to win. I think Aaron Rodgers throw a lot of people under the bus. It's always somebody else's fault. And with that leadership, it's hard to carry a team that, of course, every team have flaws. Tampa Bay Bucks last year dealt with a lot of injuries, dealt with, no preseason, no camp, and Brady made it work. Patrick Mahomes, made it back to the AFC Championship despite a rocky, regular season, but I feel like Aaron Rodgers lacks the leadership to carry a team to a Super Bowl, especially after so many opportunities. I don't think another player went so many NFC championships and lost.
Yeah, I mean, you do have to question what is the leadership, right? I mean, this is a guy, we're talking about a guy here, not to bash on his personal life too much, but, this is a guy who lied about his vaccination stats, who for most of this season, instead of really making it about his team and making it about the goal of winning another Super Bowl, was making a lot of the conversation about himself. He wasn't going to back down. He was going on Pat McAfee and trying to defend why he lied about the vaccinations, um, why his decision was more important than to sacrifice for the team and just getting the freaking shot. And I do think that arrogance kind of comes back to bite because, as you said, if you're not there for the team, do they buy into you completely? And when you don't buy into something completely, you start messing up on details and special teams. We don't talk about special teams a lot because in the NFL, 95% of the time, it's just automatic. We expect every punt to go off smoothly. We expect most field goals to be made. But when you have all phases of those, that unit just falling apart, and it's not just that, too. The 49ers were having decent kick returns. It helped them get a field goal there in the third quarter. That's what loses you football games. And I makes me question how much did Aaron Rodgers really inspire his team? How much does Matt LaFleur really inspire his team? And it's disheartening if you're a Packers fan like this, because I don't know when you're going to be back. I don't think Jordan Love's going to be the answer. I mean, he could be decent, but he didn't look good this year. In his second year, can remember he's not a rookie anymore. I feel like the Packers overall have proven they're not the best at personnel decisions. They never gave Rodgers, I think, enough to work with. It's just, and you're speaking of Aaron Rodgers, where does he go? Does he play again? Do you think with everything that he did this year,
if he stays again, then he cannot complain. That he has to be embracing rebuild and working with it. He can't be like, oh, Green Bay doesn't give enough to me and then stay. It's like when you stay in an unhealthy relationship, you complain your partner all the time, but then you're like, oh no, I'm not gonna break up.
Right. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is known as a guy who is willing to burn bridges like that. I mean, just look at the stuff with him and his family. It's not peachy for Aaron Rodgers. And I think if he plays again, it's not going to be in Green Bay. He's going to want to always play for a title contender. So what are those teams? Do we think New Orleans would want to take a chance at him? Do we think Pittsburgh wants him? Do we think maybe the Titans would want to take a shot at him? Do we think I'm trying to think of another team here.
Denver Broncos was the most obvious.
Denver. Yeah, Denver is one too. San Francisco, would they want him? Even though they've just beat him. I mean, obviously with Tom Brady, we know these quarterbacks in the modern iteration in the NFL can play into their 40s. At least Tom Brady can. Can Aaron Rodgers do the same thing? I don't know. But that's certainly something I think you got to at least take a shot at. As someone as talented and as great as Aaron Rodgers, because I think Aaron Rodgers, from a pure talent standpoint, is one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. But the results are not there to show for it. And how much better does he truly make a team when he goes there? Like, I think he would make the Titans into a Super Bowl contender if he came here, because you have the running backs behind you, you have A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, and I think you have a very solid system where you wouldn't have to do everything like he has to do in Green Bay. But, is he too much of a distraction?
Do you compare Aaron Rodgers to Allen Iverson? Very talented, very gifted players, but just couldn't get it done in the postseason.
Well, I mean, Aaron Rodgers has a Super Bowl. I mean, he does have a Super Bowl ring. Like, we know he can win one, but the question is, why didn't he win more? Like, that's what's. I'm thinking about this. The Green Bay Packers as an organization, they've had Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers back to back for a combined 30 years. They only have 2 championships. I mean, for all the success, I mean, to me, the Green Bay Packers are like the Atlanta Braves. Over the past 30 years, those 2 franchises consistently have been title contenders, yet they've only won 2 championships each in the last 30 years, when they probably could have had 4 or 5 easily. So, and obviously, I'm not complaining about the last one since it just happened, but still, that's, some teams just, they chronically underachieve, and the Packers, to an extent, are one of those teams.
And look at the Packers. They lost in the last 7 NFC championship. They lost 4 out of 7.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, it's just a part of the culture. It's like Tennessee, Florida, right? Tennessee has had a better team than Florida many years in their overall losing streaks over the past 16 years, like 15 out of 16. But there's just something when the Vols step on the field and they see the Gator helmet across the field, they just tense up. And I do think for an extent the Packers, when they get on that field against the 49ers, against the Bucks, against these teams they know they have to get through to get to the promised land, the Super Bowl, they just tense up. They make mistakes they don't normally make. Like, think about the Packers. The Packers are normally a very competent team during the regular season, but they didn't look anything close to that on Saturday night. So I think there is something psychological to it that you just can't explain unless you're in that locker room. And unfortunately, we're not in the locker room.
But definitely in the future, there will come answers. There will be people talking about reasons why this team couldn't get it done. And I
Right.
think it's the end of an era. When you lose in at home to a weaker rival, to the weakest, the I think was the most favorable, Green Bay Packers, I bet, was the most favored in this weekend, and they just couldn't get it done. It just show, I think Mike McCarthy was not the best coach, but I think he wasn't the only thing that was not going well for the Packers organization.
Yeah, it's the type of loss that you have to make changes after. And I really do think they're going to go through a lot of turmoil in Green Bay. But I will say this: at least the one good thing is your division is going to be weak. Like, the Vikings, I think, have a shot to be really good if they can get the right coaching hire, if they can get a really good defense. Because I do like Kirk Cousins, I like Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook. I don't think they're going to be a Super Bowl contender by any means, but they certainly have the ability to be really good. But Detroit, they have a long way to go in their rebuild. Chicago, again, like Minnesota, got to get the right coach. Got to see if you can build up Justin Fields into a good quarterback. And I think Green Bay is still going to be competitive, but they're not going to be anywhere with like what they are right now, which is they're not going to be a title contender, and which is going to be hard for Packers fans as well because they are used to being title contenders, and it's it's going to take a little while. And the Packers usually are a well-run organization, and I think they're going to find their way back eventually. But I would prepare mentally now if you're a Packers fan to prepare maybe for a few years of not being in that spotlight. But you've had your chances, and I think you're going to have to sit there and stew about it for a while. But getting into the last NFC game, and this one was a doozy, and I thought we were about to see history repeat yesterday afternoon. The Los Angeles Rams at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Rams dominated the first 2.5 quarters of this game. They got up to a 27-3 lead. Matthew Stafford was on fire. He was just destroying the Tampa Bay defense. Cooper Kupp was doing his thing, had a 70-yard touchdown reception. Tom Brady just did not look good at all throughout most of this game. But the Rams just started self-destructing. They had 4 fumbles in the later halves of the third quarter for the fourth quarter. They had a 47-yard field goal attempt by Matt Gay fall short. Like, how does an NFL kicker hit a 47-yard field goal short? And meanwhile, the Bucks just kept on making play after play after play. They hit it. Brady hit a deep ball to Evans. They were able to drive down after a Cam Akers fumble to tie the game. And it looked like, oh my gosh, we are about to see 28-3 all over again. And of course, this time would have been 27-3. But with 47 seconds left, Matthew Stafford has proven himself as an elite quarterback, and perhaps now will start making his case for the Hall of Fame because he has Hall of Fame stats, but he just never had a signature moment. But that deep throw from Stafford to Cooper Kupp to set up the game-winning field goal for the Los Angeles Rams was that moment that Matthew Stafford has never had. And I'll say this, I take 2 things away. One, I think Cooper Kupp should be MVP. I don't think any quarterback has distinguished themselves enough this year for MVP, but Cooper Kupp, the record-setting season that he has had, I think he has an argument for the MVP award, and I would vote for him as my MVP, which is insane. I know. And I know some people will say, well, Matthew Stafford gets a lot of that credit. True. But Cooper Kupp has just been special. Like this is one of the greatest season by a wide receiver, and without Cooper Kupp, the Rams don't win that football game. And two,
And
Matthew Stafford is that guy. He is that guy. He can win the playoffs. That was my question heading into this postseason. I am all in now on Matthew Stafford.
And it just proved that Sean McVay did the right decision. Jared Goff, he went to the Super Bowl with Jared Goff, but Jared Goff wasn't giving the sparkles, wasn't have the arm talent, the clutchness that Matthew Stafford have. So the trade really paid off already. I don't know what's going to happen in the NFC Championship, but I think the trade was one of the best trades in football. And even Jared Goff, I think, can rebuild his career in Detroit, but Matthew Stafford really should come every day and be like, Sean McVay, thank you for giving me a lifeline in my career and not letting me let my career die in Detroit. I think he playing in playoffs right now, it's like revitalize his career.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll say this, like his career was never dead. He just never really got it's really an indictment of how bad the Detroit Lions organization is. Like, how did you never give this guy a good team good enough to make a Super Bowl run? Like you had the best quarterback you've ever had. I mean, this is the best player outside of Barry Sanders and Megatron that Detroit had ever had. And you just couldn't do anything for him. And it's just insane that it took him getting out of Detroit and going to Los Angeles to succeed in that capacity. But he absolutely has. He's proven that he deserved to be that number one overall pick. And because I remember when he played in college, right? Like he was special at Georgia, playing with no Sean Moreno and just really elevating that Georgia offense. And it took Georgia a long time after he left to really get back in a position where their offense was remotely that good again. So now I think the question on the other side too, a lot of people are questioning about Brady and what's his future. I feel like for Brady, it's year to year. I've got a feeling he'll come back. I was losing guys like obviously losing Chris Godwin, losing Antonio Brown. And by the way, on Antonio Brown, real quick, did you see what he tweeted after the game?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just dude, if I were a Bucks fan, look, Antonio Brown helped you win a title, sure, but like, I think you're very much in a good riddance on him. Just attention distractor, an attention. He takes and takes and takes. So eventually, you have to cut it off, but cut the attention seeker off. But of course, and this is the same position I've had Brady for a while now. I don't think he's the best quarterback by a long shot. He clearly will make the right decisions. He'll get you into positions to win. And clearly, with him, you're never out of the game for a multitude of reasons because he just seems to be the lucky. He seems to be one of the luckiest athletes of all time. Of course, it didn't go in his way at the end, but I do think that clearly he's able to keep his team calm, able to keep his team playing hard. But to me, I'd say this is the least, I guess, heartbreaking out of all the losses, just because the Bucks just won the Super Bowl, and you were down 27-3, so you only have yourselves to blame for losing that game, for getting down that much, and it just shows that all of the capital the Rams have poured into this season so far has been working. Odell Beckham has played phenomenal this postseason. Von Miller was phenomenal in that game. So, of course, the Rams, they're not going to be drafting well for years just because they gave up a lot of their draft picks. So they have to win a title, which moves us into discussion of the NFC Championship game. San Francisco, Los Angeles. And by the way, I must say this is exciting. I love when those two cities fight because those two cities hate each other so much. NoCal versus SoCal. The Silicon Valley versus Hollywood. They hate each other. And the fact that we're getting this matchup for a chance to win the NFC and go to Super Bowl, I think is awesome.
And also, they're probably, Rams and 49ers fans table, and the Dodgers and Giants divisional round is still in, those fans' minds because
San Francisco fans haven't gotten over that yet.
Yeah, they haven't got over that yet. So, and Imagine 49ers beating the Rams and preventing the Rams to play at home Super Bowl like Tampa
Right.
Bay did last year. And I was trying to think, I'm trying to remember if there was ever an NFC Championship and a Super Bowl played in the same stadium.
Yeah, I'm trying to think because obviously the Bucks played on the road last year. The Vikings had a shot to play on their home field, but
But they play on the road against the Phillies.
yeah,
So the
yeah,
Bucks and the Vikings play on the road. So
that's
there wasn't the same stadium for the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl.
yeah. I don't know if that's ever happened before, so I'm pretty sure this is the first time. Well, it may not be the first time. I'm looking through the history books now. Um, I don't think this has happened before, which is just saying something. And it's going to be awesome because I love SoFi Stadium. That's one of my bucket list stadiums now. I have to go see that stadium in person because it just looks amazing on television. No matter whether it's the Rams or Chargers playing there, it looks awesome. But it's going to be awesome to see the Super Bowl there. I can't wait to see what they do with the Super Bowl. I can't wait to see what they do with the halftime show inside that building, especially with it being all the local California artists like Dre, Snoop Dogg, Kendrick. Well, I mean Eminem's from Michigan,
Yeah,
but still, he
just
belongs to
just
the same record company.
just to confirm, yeah, SoFi Stadium is the first venue to host a conference championship and a Super Bowl in the same season.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I mean, so what do you think about this game? Because this is a fascinating matchup. The 49ers dominated the first. Well, okay, they dominated the first game because I remember I was covering it for the interview podcast and TikTok. Kind of record some of the big plays. The Niners just dominated the Rams in Santa Clara in the first game. But then in the second game, the Rams jumped out to a 17-0 lead. But then the 49ers came back. Juwan Jennings had a huge game. VFL legend, 2 touchdowns, and helped the 49ers win in overtime. Of course, that game got them in the playoffs to begin with. And now they are here once again playing the Los Angeles Rams. What do you think about this game? Because I think there's a lot of interesting factors here. Of course, Jimmy Garoppolo has not played well in the playoffs. Could he be saving a good game for the NFC title game?
I think the only hope for the 49ers is to increase Jimmy Garoppolo's trade value because I think and hope they don't lose badly because I think the Rams are going to win. I think it's going to be a 7 to 10 point lead. I think it's going to be a Rams Chiefs game. Hopefully, it's going to be like Rams Chiefs Super Bowl like they play in the LA game. I think it was 2018.
Yeah, the Monday night game. It was like 54-51. It was one of the craziest regular season games I've ever watched.
Yeah, hopefully it's going to be a Super Bowl like that in LA. But I don't think the 49ers, they don't have enough talent to overcome, all the lack of, quarterback.
See, and this is the thing, though. I disagree with that. The 49ers have just as much talent as the Rams outside of the quarterback position. Their defense is phenomenal.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think in all the roster is equal, but quarterback, the Rams have so much better. That's what
Yeah, I'd say that's going to be a massive difference here. The 49ers have a decent running game, too. Although I really like the 49ers running game. And I like the way they use Deebo Samuel. And that's going to be the key here. Deebo Samuel is going to have to go off. Juwan Jennings will have to have some big plays in this game. And I think they're going to have to get 2 to 3 turnovers. I think that will be the key. I think Sean McVay is too good of a coach to get beat 3 times by the same teammate. Especially Kyle Shanahan, who I've had my criticisms for, even though I think he is a very good coach himself. Part of me wants to take the Niners here. It really does. I feel like this team has some sort of aura around them, but they've played really sloppy. And so have the Rams. That's what makes this game really hard to pick. I think the Rams will find a way to hold on at home. I think it'll be like a touchdown game. I think it'll be really close. I think the Niners will have their chances, but at the end of the day, I just don't trust Jimmy Garoppolo to make a play when he is going to have to in this game. And Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp will be hosting the Super Bowl against the Chiefs.
I think so too. And I think the 49ers, if they lose this game, is just show that they need to find a quick quarterback, and why not go for Aaron Rodgers and Jimmy Garoppolo? I think that could be an interesting trade.
That would
I
be
would,
insane. I mean, because think about the Rodgers, the 49ers for some reason own him. And you have to remember, though, that Aaron Rodgers wanted to be a 49er so freaking bad. Like, they chose Alex Smith over him in the 2004 NFL draft. So I really do think that that's going to always weigh on Aaron Rodgers unless he gets an opportunity to put on the red and gold helmet. So I do think this will be the last ride for Jimmy Garoppolo, who will have a complicated legacy in San Francisco.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
So to kind of wrap up the Americans, I had a whole other topic, but I'm going to just drop that because we spent so much time in the NFL. I do just want to do one shout here, and it's the world of NCAA women's basketball. Ioka Lee, I hope I'm saying that right. She plays for Kansas State in the Big 12. She dropped 61 points yesterday against Oklahoma, the most ever in a Division I women's basketball game. So I just wanted to shout that out because that was an incredible stat, an incredible game. Obviously, I haven't seen Kansas State play, so I don't know if they're going to be in the tournament. So they're third in the Big 12 right now. They're number 25, yeah, so they'll probably be in the tournament. So that'll be a team to certainly check out when March comes. Of course, Our Lady Vols that we follow are number 4 in the country. Kelly Harper, 17-1, 7-0 in the SEC. Pat Summitt certainly looking down from heaven, very, very excited about this Lady Vols team because they're just fun to watch. They play well as a team. Anyone can win the game for them. I'm excited to see what they do against a team like South Carolina here in a couple of weeks, who's number 1 in the country, because I think this team could have a chance at making a deep Elite Eight, maybe Final Four run. I don't know if you've got to see the Lady Vols any this year, guys.
they're playing phenomenal in the SEC. I mean, even though they had some scares, if it was against Kentucky, they are really going strong. And I mean,
Really,
last
they
year,
dominated that game. I mean, they were down in the first quarter, but they just roasted them in the second quarter. Like Ray Burrell, I mean, she was going off in that game, just unbelievable. Like, of course, she had been injured, but she's playing her way back into Marquee. Her presence inside as a center has been phenomenal. I mean, the Lady Vols, they are a physical, dominant team, which is what was the keystone of many of Pat Summitt's teams. And I think it's going to be exciting because I don't know who's going to win. South Carolina's really good. Stanford. You have Louisville, North Carolina State. UConn hasn't been that good. Of course, they're going to get Paige Beckers back at some point. So you know better to never count out Gino Ariyama. I really want to watch Iowa play some because Caitlin Clark, to me, is the female Steph Curry. She can shoot from anywhere. So definitely, if you don't really watch a lot of women's basketball, definitely check it out. I'll say this: the game itself has improved a ton over the years, and the parity has improved, and it's gonna be really exciting. Of course, on the men's side, I have no clue who's gonna win it. Auburn and Bruce Pearl are number 1 right now. I miss Bruce Pearl, but I will say this: the Vols this past week were 2-0. They beat Vanderbilt for the 9th straight time in Nashville, and they finally beat Will Wade. Thankfully, I cannot stand that dude. The most annoying coach in college basketball. And the Vols, they're still not playing pretty at all. Their offense isn't great, but their defense is playing lights out right now. Of course, they had to come back after letting up 1 or 2 to Kentucky, but they're now back up to number 18, number 11 in the net ratings, which are basically the modern day RPI rankings. And I think they're going to have a pretty interesting close to the season here. I don't think they're going to get past the Sweet 16 personally, but I'm hoping that I'm wrong.
yeah, let's see if Rick Barnes is not like Aaron Rodgers. He can deliver in the postseason as much as he delivered in the regular season.
Right, because that's been Rick Barnes' Achilles heel. He can never win in March. So can he finally win in March with this team? We'll have to wait and find out. I think Auburn right now is by far the best team in college basketball, but it is only January. And teams typically that peak right now aren't around in March. So, of course, you got Gonzaga there too. Of course, they are also notorious chokers. So, will they finally be able to not choke anymore and win the national championship? Well, It's going to be a long wait away. And of course, when we get to March, we're going to do all kinds of basketball coverage, right, guys? We're going to break down the brackets. I got to start watching some more basketball. Of course, I've been so enthralled with NFL that I haven't watched as much college basketball. But I'm definitely over the next month or so really going to break it down, start watching more of these teams, and figure out um, what's going to happen. Of course, it's impossible to predict March. But that's all I have for the American side. I know Brazilian soccer is finally getting off to a start. And I know I was watching a little bit of your coverage of Palmeiras and Grêmio the other day. And of course, Grêmio, I know they fell down a division last
No,
year.
it's a different one. It's a different one. I know there's a lot. That's Grêmio Novo Horizonte. That's the now we're in the state tournaments where you have a lot of little teams that look have similar names, but they but actually were good in the 90s, and then they bankrupt, and then they come back.
Interesting. Yeah. So how did they manage to come back from bankruptcy?
They create a new was the new is like a kind of like a it's like the colors are the same, the name is basically very much the same, they play the same stadium, but it's a whole different legal person. It's a lot of people joke, it's like, oh, they're oh they're they're this team won there was the runner up in the 1991 state championship. No, they're and then a lot of people diehard soccer fans like, no, they're not, because that team dissolved and this is a new team. But like, I think the Novo Horizonte city, they don't care. They are just happy to have a team that represent their city again. And a lot of fans from back in the old days, they're still thinking about the team as the same. But Palmeiras basically dominated that game. They of course, when you start January soccer in Brazil, the those little teams can match up evenly with the big teams because they've been preparing for months. They have a kind of a really solid preseason with 1 or 2 months. The big teams, they have 3 week stop. It's say 2.5 weeks. So the game is even because of the disparity of preseason. But once talent comes, it's hard to stop because Dudu again. What a player! Beautiful goal in the second half, and Zé Rafael, which he was kind of violent. He was almost like expelled. He got a yellow card, and he was close to get a red card. The referees were kind of loose on him. He was subbed, but Palmeiras took care of business, 2-0. And but the best part of that whole Sunday was Palmeiras head coach Abel Ferreira. He finally said it when needed people to hear about Hendrick. He was like, I'm not gonna take him to the FIFA World Cup Championship in February because he's a 15-year-old boy. And he even joked about it. I hope Palmeiras give him a Disneyland ticket and so he can celebrate the Copinha title instead of going to Qatar and play with the professionals because he's a 15-year-old boy. So Abel Ferreira was like, calm down. He's like, of
Wait,
course
so
he's a
okay, how many people are one Hendrick at the World Cup? Just out of curiosity, because it sounds like there's a lot of people.
of course the fans are like promoting this idea in social media, and then some bloggers go along and be like, oh, he has to go because he is the future of soccer. He has to kind of learn professionals be in the same environment. But like, it's not the time, it's not the place. And
Yeah,
Hendrick.
what it reminds me of is Christian Latner from in the '90s being on the Dream Team, a place he did
Yes,
not belong.
yes. Basically, that comparison. Hendrick does not belong there yet. Maybe in 5 or 6 years. Yes, if he didn't turn that. And it was a great interview by Lulinha, a guy that I brought up here, that is a prime example of Hendrick should look up to be like, kind of see like what a overhyped young player and the overhyped media can do to a young player, and kind of like makes this career fall apart. So for me, great speech by Abel Ferreira. That's why he's the best soccer coach in Brazil by a mile. That's why for me he's one of the best soccer coaches in the world, in the top 15, even in the top 10, because he doesn't care about being popular. He cares about getting it right. He cares about making winning mentality. He cares about the fundamentals of the game. I love his speech. It's like uh, uh, it's like cold mind, fire in the heart.
Yeah, it sounds like a great saying because soccer
Oh,
is such a sport where that's so about details because one small mistake um,
yeah.
could
So
cost you.
to get it straight, it's like cold head, heat heart. It's like be very on calm celebrity, but still have that heart. The play with the heart. But still have the like cold mind and be mental.
Yeah, because I think about like the Bills yesterday, for example. I think what happened at the end partially is their minds were hot because they're thinking, "Oh my god, we just won the game," but they didn't sit back and think, "Oh crap, we got to stop Mahomes first."
Yeah.
Yeah,
So for me, Abel Ferreira, perfect. Even though I'm not Palmeiras fans, I'm really root for him. And what fans are scared of because, and I'm even gonna play the song, and it's gonna be the end of the song of the 21st century, and I even gonna play here the joke song of Palmeiras, because that's the song might end tomorrow. The Palmeiras don't have World Cup. Palmeiras don't have World Cup. Neither Copinha. Yeah. So this
yeah. So
song is
basically, it's basically like all the 1980 jokes we used to make about Georgia that I can't make anymore.
yeah. So that's the song that Palmeiras has to endure because the two significant titles that Palmeiras don't have and the other rivals have is the FIFA World Cup title and the São Paulo Youth Tournament. So tomorrow is the final of the São Paulo Youth Tournament, Copinha. Palmeiras versus Santos. Palmeiras playing at home. All tickets are sold, even though Santos complain a little bit because in the past the game was played in a neutral stadium, Pacaembu, but Pacaembu is under renovations, so they kind of chose the venue of the team with the best record, which I think is fair. Palmeiras deserve to play at home because they did a better overall record with the Copinha, but the pressure is on them because they play at home. They never won it, but I think Palmeiras is the best team by far. They're locked in. Hendrick started on the bench on Saturday win against São Paulo, and they play phenomenal first half, pressuring on defense, really playing strong. I think Palmeiras is going to win tomorrow. I'll be broadcasting for Vida Nova FM at 8 a.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Brazil time.
Wait,
I
why is
think
it so early? Like,
so the decision was originally the time they wanted to do was 4 p.m. But normally it's in the morning because tomorrow is a city holiday in São Paulo. It's the birthday of São Paulo. That's why the
oh,
finals play on
okay,
this Tuesday. But the decision was because also Corinthians is playing a home game to start their season at 9 p.m. Brazil time. So if they
okay.
put a game at 4 p.m., a Palmeiras home game and a Corinthians game at 9 p.m., it'll basically be a nightmare for the police and the organization because Palmeiras and Corinthians Stadium they kind of have the same subway line that connect them, the line 2. So it'll be an influx of Palmeiras fans leaving the stadium and a lot of Corinthians fans going to the stadium. And the São Paulo police thought it would be very risky playing in the afternoon. So they put in the game in the morning so then the fans are out by like 1 or 2 and then Corinthians fan can go at night. I mean, and I'm going to talk about that on my hot take, but unfortunately, that's the way soccer is right now in Brazil. Like you have to play they have to play a game, make a time game, be far apart as possible to the other team. Unfortunately, because of those,
Yeah,
unfortunately,
I gotta worry
fans.
about the stampedes and stuff because I don't know if you saw what happened at it was in Cameroon.
Cameroon. But
Yeah.
it's not about more the stampede. It's more about, unfortunately, the not I not even call fans about criminals who dress up as soccer fans who took any opportunity they can to fight with other unruly people, and then police have to figure out ways to make the game as far as possible to create anything like no Santos fans are not gonna be allowed to go to the game tomorrow. Santos fans cannot go to the game. If they want to go, they have to be like, neutral or they're going to be hidden because they're not allowed to go in because of you know, and I'm gonna talk about my rant, but unfortunately that was the decision. But tomorrow, 10 a.m. and I really think Palmeiras gonna win, and if they win, I think they're gonna win in February the FIFA World Cup, and then the ends of the jokes of soccer in Brazil. And then I think that all the rivals of Palmeiras right now are gonna be cheering so badly for Santos.
What's interesting too, just kind of relating this back to the NFL. I don't know if you saw what's going on with the Rams, but they're like region locking tickets. So like you have to have a certain zip code to buy a ticket through their website to go to the Rams game because they don't want 49ers fans taking over. So I'm going to start wondering if we're going to start seeing more of that. We're like, okay, we don't want zip codes from around the Bay coming and buying, which I think is just absolutely ridiculous. If you don't have the fan base, you don't have the fan base. The Titans are notoriously, we have, a lot of visiting fans because one, Nashville is a tourist city. And two, it's just unfortunately we have one of the smaller fan bases. So I don't know. Like, I understand though, and I guess in a more contentious situation why you wouldn't want to do that, but I just think that's a bad deal. Like, I don't want to see that happen in college football. Like, as much as I hate when like an Alabama fan or Georgia fan takes over Neyland Stadium, that's part of the deal. Like, I love it when we go. I remember a couple of years ago when we went to Auburn and took over their stadium and won down there. Like, that was phenomenal. That was one of the most fun games I've ever been to. So it's part of the experience of sports, I think. And I hate to think that we are neutralizing that element of sports, because if you don't want the road fans coming and taking over, then it's your job as the home fan base to prevent that from happening.
But in Brazil, and I'm gonna go straight to my, I'm gonna go straight to my hot take. And it is all go down to violence in Brazilian soccer, because for example, on Saturday, São Paulo Palmeiras semifinal of Copinha, all São Paulo fans. There are no Palmeiras fans because in the years past, they thought, oh, when there's like a derby or like a matchup between Palmeiras Corinthians, Palmeiras São Paulo, Corinthians São Paulo, or even with Santos, they would think, oh, if the road team have their fans here, it's going to be more trouble for the police and more violence. So only home fans. But that's not the case. Only home fans there can be trouble. Yesterday, two fans invaded the pitch, almost injured Palmeiras players, and then an identified person, because I'm not going to call a fan, threw a knife at the stadium. Thank God it didn't hit anybody. But it's one thing to throw the mustard, but it's another thing to throw a knife.
Yeah, that makes what Vols fans did pretty minor.
Yeah.
Outsources that.
Yeah. So when is gonna end? When is we gonna let criminals, destroy the passion of cheering soccer, going to the stadium? They already took from us the ability of the stadium be 50-50 like in the past. I have some friends that are older than me. They're like in their late 30s, in the 40s, 50s, and they tell me how beautiful it was, the stadium with 50-50 fans, Corinthians and Palmeiras in the full Morumbi Stadium, 50% Palmeiras, 50% Corinthians fans, and it was a beautiful spectacle of chantings and beautiful. But now, unfortunately, it's all home fans. So of course it makes people more comfortable to going to these big games, but it takes the fun out of going to this kind of kind of hostile adverse environment. I went as a Corinthians fan to a São Paulo Corinthians game in São Paulo Stadium, and it was the best thing to be in the visitor sector, to cheer for my team. You even cheer harder because you're in the on your rival's home. But unfortunately, right now in Brazil, it's going to be further and further apart from this. But the problem is, we tend to blame the group. We tend to blame soccer fans, the organized support. You have to blame the individual. You have to blame the person who threw the knife. You have to put in jail who invade the pitch. If you starting to punish the individual and not punish the group, then the violence will decrease. That's obvious.
Yeah, I mean, it's always about individual responsibility. Even when I get like back at Tennessee Ole Miss, don't generalize the entire fan base. Let's get after the people who decided that was a good idea to throw stuff at the field. I mean, you can be as angry as you want. Like I was at the Music City Bowl, I was furious. Like I at that moment, there was no people I hated more in the world than the referees in the Tennessee Purdue game. But you know, I knew also I can't throw stuff at them. You can't assault them. Like I'm going to sit there curse at them, but at the end of the day, there's nothing I could do about the end of the result. Um, so
Yeah, in Brazil
it's
have this mentality that you took over. It's like, and the São Paulo fans, they used to be civil. They used to be the more, kind of civil fans. Their organized fan group called Independente, saying that fans cannot wear a pink jersey that they even their own the São Paulo team did for the breast cancer awareness month. They can't go in a certain uh you know haircut or certain way. It even hated a nickname that I don't know who created, because they want to impose their will in the stands, because they want to be the mafia of the stands, because they want to be, it's our way or the highway, and
Yeah,
they
that's
cannot.
not right. Like you can joke around like, hey, we're going to be the enforcers of the fan base, but you can't actually do stuff like that. Like that, like yeah, it's supposed to be your number one job is supposed to be making noise and being loud. And you can do funny chants and stuff, like that's fine. Like get in the opposing team's head and the opposing fans' head, you know? Like it makes me mad to hear like Rammer Jammer, we beat the hell out of you, Tennessee, or stuff like that. But it's just like that's a part of the thing. That's a part of sports. And there's a difference between that and physically fighting someone. And I really hope we don't get to the point where in the US we start diminishing the visiting team's impact on the game.
Yeah, because one thing that people ask me when I was in US, my sports experience, like, so you're able to go to a road game with the jersey and nobody did nothing to you? It's like, yeah, I went to a Braves games wearing my Mets jersey. Nobody did nothing to me. I went to a Titans Jets game wearing my Jets jersey. Nobody did anything to me. I went to a Hawks game in Atlanta wearing my Knicks jersey 3 times. Nothing happened to me. But in Brazil, if I go to a Corinthians game, I have to be like, do I have any green? Do I have any green? Do I have even a sock green? Oh my God. Like, you cannot even wear a green sock. You have to be worried. Like,
Yeah.
or if you go to a Palmeiras game, like, is there anything black? No. You have to watch what you wear.
Yeah, I mean, the most I've ever had happen to me was Gator fans, chomping in my face, or Alabama fans smoking a cigar right in my face. But again, that's not exactly the same as having a knife thrown at you. So, and then let's be honest here. If Tennessee won those games, I probably would have been chomping in their face too. And I'm not a smoker, but probably would be at least faking a cigar in their face. I mean, it's just, it is what it is.
And that's what I want soccer in Brazil to go back to be provocative, to be fun again. I feel like that's the sad part of, soccer is more and more losing the fun side of it. And, teams are like obligated to win a title, or win or die. And I feel like, the all the soccer fans, not counting Palmeiras fans, really don't want Palmeiras to win those titles, because then the last meme song is over.
Right. It's all, we always forget that sports is supposed to be entertainment. It's supposed to be about being proud of the team and the school you support. And I think that's part of what's happening to college football. It's all about the playoffs now. So it's not about beating your rival, about winning the SEC, about representing your school and your state. It's just that's what happens. I think, and it's not really ultimately it comes back to just the society. And I think a lot of this goes back to society, and I don't want to go too far off on that tangent, but when certain things start being accepted in society, that trickles back into sports, because sports is just a microcosm of society.
Yeah.
When political violence is allowed, it's going to fall into sports.
In
So I
Brazil, the
think
opposite. I feel like, sports rivalry became political rivalry. It's so funny how
right.
in Brazil right now, political parties are kind of like soccer teams, and soccer teams are behaving like political parties, doing spreadsheets, and team care about the who's the president, who's the owner. So it's just funny. That's
Yeah.
my rant. Hopefully, you know, one day Brazilian soccer would end violence.
Yeah, I certainly hope so because I want to see those visiting fans get to enjoy their trips. All right, so I'm going to have a pretty light take here. Um, I had to cover something that actually was announced during the Packers 49ers game, and this is coming up concerning the upcoming NASCAR season. Uh, of course, Fox, they lost Jeff Gordon at the end of last season because Jeff Gordon now is the second in command at Hendrick Motorsports. He's going to eventually take over that team. Of course, he's a legend. 93 career wins, 4 championships. Really should be 7, but I digress. I could do a whole rant on that. Distinguish that whole situation later. But safe to say he's going to be running Hendrick Motorsports for a long time. So you just leave Mike Joy, probably one of the greatest commentators ever at NASCAR, and you have Clint Boyer, who's going to be in his second year calling races. So now they had a third spot. What are they going to do with that third spot? So they announced for the upcoming Los Angeles Clash that's going to be ran. The race is going to be in the USC football stadium, which is going to be really cool to watch, I think. And then the Daytona 500, two-time champion, or actually three-time champion, Tony Stewart. Of course, a lot of people might know him from that incident where he ran over a competitor, Kevin Ward, in a dirt race in Indiana. Of course, ended up killing him. And I will say this, a lot of people debate, was Tony Stewart a murderer? No. You don't run on a racetrack during a race. That was really stupid on Ward's part, and it was just a tragic, unfortunate mistake that Ward made, and Tony Stewart couldn't do anything. Could not avoid him. He was on dirt. It was unfortunate, but besides the point, Tony Stewart is one of the most passionate racing enthusiasts in the entire country. He knows his history. He knows his stuff. And I think it's going to provide great insight here at the LA Clash and at the Daytona 500. But the problem for me is that he's only going to be there for 2 races. And of course, it makes sense because he has to run the Superstar Race Experience, SRX, later on in the summer, which is a fantastic racing series if you love motorsports. We'll certainly check that out once the summer rolls around. I don't know who else you're going to put at that third spot. I think, racers like Jamie McMurray could be good there. I think perhaps Larry McReynolds could take some shots at it. There's perhaps some other personalities that could be good there. But I think Toaster will be good in that spot. And, actually, I'm just excited for racing to come back. Of course, next weekend will be the first exhibition race. And then in 3 weeks from this Sunday, the week and after the Super Bowl will be the Daytona 500, which is always one of the most chaotic races on the calendar. Yeah, that's all I have to say on that.
But good luck for him. I hope he does a good job, in the broadcasting booth. Of course, Fox wants to keep, NASCAR strong, and definitely, he can.
And I'll say this too. I think they have to improve significantly. Fox's broadcasts last year were awful compared to NBC. Like, I think they were getting too goofy, too silly. And here's the thing, NASCAR gets a lot of jokes, right, from national eyes. A lot of people think that's just rednecks turning left, but there's a lot more to it than that, And the broadcasts have to help bring the sport legitimacy, and they used to do that. They used to treat it with seriousness because people used to die all the time in the sport, like Dale Earnhardt and other drivers because it was dangerous. But I think as the sport has gotten safer, we've stopped treating it as the dangerous sport that it actually is. And I really would want to see both Fox and NBC give it the respect that it deserves. Of course, I think NBC did a much better job, but I think Fox could do a far better job, talking about how hard it is. It is not easy to drive those cars at 200 miles an hour. It isn't. Like, no regular person could do that. It takes a special skill set. And because, obviously, I know it's not Formula One, and, you're not, with all the road courses and stuff. But, stock cars are some of the hardest cars to drive in the world. And, I just want Fox to relay the seriousness of that. So hopefully I think Tony Stewart will be a great person to help just do just that.
Yeah, that's it for our Two Countries, Two Americas All Sports Episode 13 podcast. You can catch us on Spotify, on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. For Nick Hill down in cold Chattanooga, Tennessee, United States.
Yep.
I'm Gustavo Tomazeli in really, really hot Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil. Thanks for listening and watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
Y'all take care, guys.
Black bees came to make it hot.